Here's a segment from a recent Gun Talk radio episode. You can listen to all the Gun Talk radio podcasts however you tune in, or check out guntalk.com for more. You know, as much as we like to talk about our guns and how much fun they are to shoot and fun to buy and everything else, at the core of it all is the Second Amendment, to our Constitution, and maybe the most misunderstood amendment in our Constitution. And the reality is, I would submit that it is misunderstood by many gun owners who don't really get where it came from, what it means, and even more importantly, and this is where I really get to the heart of the matter, is how do you defend it? Because as I've said before, a lot of our people are really poor at trying to defend the Second Amendment. Make a lot of noise, but they don't make much headway, if you will. It is a true pleasure to bring in, at this point, best-selling author and the author of a really cool book in defense of the Second Amendment. The author is Larry Correia. Larry, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
I was just looking. Looks like you got an early start on one of the early online bulletin boards for guns, the High Road.
Yeah, that's true. I was a moderator on there way back when I was in college. That's actually where I wrote my first book and sold my very first novel, Monster Hunter International. Well, it was a bunch of online gun forum people.
I was on the High Road. It had to be, 20 years ago?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, every bit of it. Yeah, I remember, it's one of those, people don't understand what it was like back then. It was hard to find things on the internet because the internet just kind of barely existed. We were getting started. So, but a lot of us started on that and really, got cranked up. High Road was one of those. You actually got your book kind of published online and then picked up from there. And it became the first of how many books do you have out now?
It's 25 novels.
You're just not getting anything done. You're just sitting around eating bonbons.
Yeah. I grew up on a dairy farm. I kept that work ethic.
There you go. All right. So, you got this new book, In Defense of the Second Amendment, and you heard my intro in it that most people, even on our side, don't fully understand the Second Amendment, what it is, what it means, where it came from, but most importantly, how to defend it in an effective manner, and that is how to be persuasive when they do that. And as a novelist, as a writer, it's been my experience, writers look at things differently, maybe in more detail. What made you write this book? What's it all about?
Well, I wanted to put together just kind of a book that was kind of a helpful guide for everybody who's already on our side, and also for people who are kind of on the fence, people who maybe they're interested in self-defense. They've been thinking about it, but they've been lied to all their lives by the media. And I kind of wanted to get this out there to help people like us, who could articulate and be able to go out there and fight back and have a good response ready for every single one of the things that the anti-gun people throw at us. And I go through all of them. And everything I go through, I cite, I document. We look at evidence. We look at other countries and other states that have done different things. But the most important thing is I try to put it in a way that's kind of a story. I didn't want to write a book for policy wonks or statisticians. I mean, all that stuff is in there. But I wanted to write it in a way that regular people could read this and be like, yeah, I can use this to persuade my friends and my coworkers and my family members. And so I'm hoping it helps. I hope my goal here is I hope it helps move the needle on the debate.
It's an easy read. I want to get that out first to people who are going, I don't know if I can do it. Yes, you can. You can read this. It's like, okay, you take all these things that get thrown at us. Things like, okay, we should ban the AR-15. And then you say, okay, let's talk about that. It's a weapon of war. Then you go, let's talk about that. All this stuff that gets thrown at us, and you provide not just the bare bone facts, but a way of presenting a persuasive and non-threatening or maybe even non-confrontational way of addressing them.
I try to reach out to regular people. I wrote this for regular people. I do get a little spicy when I talk about the hardcore anti-gun types because those people, they know better. They know what they're pushing doesn't work. They're not dumb. They're going for a goal. They've got a narrative, and they're going to capitalize it. And so for those people, I'm pretty merciless. But I'm trying to write this for like regular people, like just regular Joe off the street. One of the ideas was behind this is I have a friend of mine, great guy. He's like to have guns in the house. He's new to guns, doesn't know much about them, but his wife won't let him because she has got into all the same old arguments we've heard for 30 years on the news. And so I wrote this book for couples like that, for him to be able to say, no, that's not how this works. And she can say, well, I heard this on the news. And he can say, nope, right here. This is how it actually works. Here's the stats. Here's the sites. Here's the reality. And,
right. You don't even have to take my word for it. Here's the stats. Here's where it comes from. And also, you encourage people to look, use your brain. This is what you're being told. Here's more information. Do the analysis yourself and see if it actually makes sense. Yeah,
absolutely. Because the other side, they have emotion on their side. Because you got to do something. Won't you think of the children? But the thing is, emotionally, we have a story too, and people not wanting to be defenseless, people not wanting to be helpless in the face of crime and tyranny. That's an emotional story too. And so I know how to play that game because I'm a writer. That's what I do.
Right.
And so I go there and I talk about what the Second Amendment is for and what it really means and what it matters. And, we push back because for too long on the gun side, we've abdicated the whole emotional argument. But the thing is, all the stuff that they're pushing for makes people more unsafe. It makes us more vulnerable to be hurt. It disarms good people and it empowers bad people. And so it's time we push back on this. And we are. And don't get me wrong, I'm very much an optimistic guy. It's an optimistic book because I think we're winning. We're winning this civil rights battle.
Well, I agree. And Larry, I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to hold you over. I want you to come back to something because you just threw a pearl out there that I think may have gotten missed. And you said we're abdicating on the emotional argument. And I would add, and we don't have to. We'll pick that up when we come back. The title of the book is In Defense of the Second Amendment. I recommend it highly. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about this particular nugget of intellectual ammunition. We'll be right back. We're talking with Larry Correia. He wrote In Defense of the Second Amendment. He's a best-selling author, and mostly in the fiction world, but this is definitely not a piece of fiction. This is what I call a huge case of intellectual ammunition. Larry, you mentioned something before we went to the break, and you said we have abdicated the emotional argument. And I want you to pick up on that because we have our own emotional argument to present that is fact-based, don't we?
We do, yeah. Too often, like as soon as there's an event, I refer to them as the vultures, like the super hardcore anti-gun politicians and media. They swoop in. They're perched waiting for blood, and they swoop in and take advantage as soon as it's there. They got a narrative. And if the event helps their narrative, they'll keep banging that drum for weeks and weeks in the news. And if it doesn't help their narrative, it'll drop off and disappear in a day. But they always have the same narrative about how take away the guns, disarm the people, let the government handle it, let the cops take care of it. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that's an emotional argument they get into. Well, you love guns more than you love children. No, I love guns because I want to protect my children and I want to protect my family. And I go through in this book and I show, like, when they get in these emotional arguments, we have that on our side too, because we're the ones that want to defend what's precious. And so I have a chapter about arming teachers, letting teachers carry guns in school, concealed carry in school. In my state, Utah, where I used to teach CCW, we've had that for almost 20 years now. Right. And it works fine. And I'm a big proponent of that. And that's an emotional thing is we love our kids and we want to keep our kids safe. 2020 was the best year ever, honestly, in one way. It's a terrible year in a lot of ways, but it's a good year in one way in that a lot of people woke up to that argument that the state can't save you. And we know we had record gun sales, and it was not us. It wasn't guys like me and you out there waiting in line to buy guns because we got ours. Right. We don't pay over MSRP. But these guys they're standing in line, they're getting whatever they can get. Why? Because they call 911 and 911 say, hey, we can't come. You're on your own. Good luck. And so for the first time, a lot of Americans realized, this is a deep down emotional thing. It's like, wow, I'm it. I'm my first responder. I'm alone.
They really came face to face with reality. And I imagine the conversation, which was, they're watching the news, they're watching the Antifa riots, they're watching the rest of it, they're watching the police being pulled out, they're watching, buildings being burned and everything else. And one of them turns to the other one and says, honey, it might be time for us to think about buying a gun. And that's how it got started.
Absolutely. And if you look at the demographics, it was all over the board. It was all of America. It was a lot of first-time buyers. Talk to any gun dealer, and they'll tell you the same thing. It was people who didn't know about things like having to fill out a 4473. And then you have states like California with their mandatory background or waiting periods. And people are in danger now, and they're scared now. And they would go to buy a gun, and they'd be told, okay, great, come back and pick it up. And I believe California's 10 days or whatever it is. And it's stuff like that.
And they were angry because they had been told there were no gun control laws.
Yep. It was interesting. So in the aftermath of this, the publishing industry is overwhelmingly out of Manhattan, so it swings that way politically.
Right.
And during this, I saw a guy I know who's an editor at a big new Manhattan publishing house. Very anti-gun his whole life. The entire time I've known this guy, he's hated guns, been in favor of every gun control thing you can think of. And he had this little poster like, what AR-15 should I buy? Because he was watching all this stuff. And my response was, well, you live in New York. Unfortunately, everything on your list is illegal.
Right. Yes. And you supported those laws, by the way.
And you voted for that.
Yes, exactly. Larry, you're a wordsmith. Let me ask you something here. I've been kind of working on this idea and throwing it out there recently, and that is the other side, the gun ban industry. I dubbed it many years ago, and that's what it is. It's a gun ban industry. They actually, almost everything they do is a marketing campaign, whether it's Everytown or Mom's Demand or whatever it is, that's now funded with, Bloomberg bucks and all of that. But it really is marketing, and of course their PR department is the general media, which just picks up what they want. That makes it easy to understand how people can pick up on that and adopt that attitude, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And that's why in the book I talk about anti-gun people, I divide them into two categories. It's like you said, there's the industry, that's the big money, big power, political media alliance. But then there's the regular people. And most of the regular people, if you know them and you delve into it with them, they've just been lied to, and they've bought into this scam. And it is overwhelming. They hit you from every angle. I have a chapter in the book. I talk about the culture war. I call it the unrelenting culture war, because this is part of it. They hit you with movies and TV, and just like think about in entertainment and books how often you see a regular citizen, just a regular American citizen, armed, making a difference in a crisis. They have heroes, but the heroes are usually special, and it's okay for them to have guns because they're not like us. And if you have someone like us,
cop or something. Yeah, there's not regular people using guns. Yeah. Yeah,
so the culture war just kind of beats us over the head continually, and that's something else that's another way we can fight back. Is I talk about that, and that's one of the things I do in my career. I write stories about regular people too, who have the rights to defend themselves and do. And every now and then stuff slips through, and it's usually wildly popular. But yeah, they have this giant media complex, and they just beat us over the head with it. But the thing that we have going for us is we have the truth on our side. We do have emotion on our side. And, reality has a way of punching people in the face and snapping them back to reality. So a lot of this media narrative stuff will sound really good until we get to stuff like 2020 and the cities are on fire and the police can't come. Because then reality just intrudes, and all of a sudden these people are forced to realize, wow, I've bought into a lie. I've been sold a bill of goods.
Let me ask you this. And look, this is a terrific book, and it is what I call intellectual ammunition. Anybody that really wants to get involved in this or up their game needs a copy of this. The question really is, how does the individual make a difference in supporting and protecting and defending the Second Amendment?
Yeah, that's actually the last thing I talk about in the book, and I go into that. And there's a lot of different options. There's a lot of wonderful pro-gun organizations in there, and I don't tell you who to join up with, but look at them and pick the one that you think that does the right thing. But more important than that, because there are a lot of people who can legislate and fight and that kind of thing. Take people shooting. Be an evangelical shooter. Take people out and convert them. Honestly, I say in the book, a lobbyist is an important person for gun rights, but just as important is the grandpa who takes his granddaughter out with a 22 for the first time and knocks cans off a fence. That is the key. We have all these new gun owners now. We've had all these millions of people have come in now to this. It's our job, those of us who've been doing this longer, to help them. Let's get them trained. Let's get them armed. Let's get them involved, and just be nice and take people out to the range.
You know what I call it, Larry? I call it vaccinating them, because once somebody goes out to the range and shoots a gun and knocks over 10 cans and has a great time and has that big smile and turns to you and says, "Hey, can I do it some more?" And you go, "Yeah, I brought lots of ammo. You can shoot." No one can ever convince that person that people who shoot guns are bad. You have vaccinated them for life.
It's true. It really is. And that's one reason the other side really wants to shut down all our access to shooting ranges. And they want to take away our ability to just have that fun and normalization of it as part of our culture. Mm-hmm. So that's part of their long-term plan. But yeah, absolutely. That's the key, is take your friends to the range. When people ask you questions, give them good information, steer them in the right direction. That requires us to have some humility too, and recognize that we don't know everything, yes. and always keep learning.
It's okay to say, "Look, I don't know, but I'll go check on that. I'll look it up, and I'll get back to you on that." That's an okay response.
Absolutely, because there's a lot of us gun guys. Like I said, I've been doing this 30 years. I get pretty stuck in my ways. Yes. I think that we can all do that. But the thing is, keep an open mind, keep learning new techniques, new things, new ways to teach people, new ways to help people out. I think that's the key, honestly, for our future. Single biggest thing we can do.
Well, I just want to thank you. It's a wonderful book. I cannot recommend it more highly for people. And it is just a terrific effort. And I haven't read your fiction works, but I can just tell you from this, you are a good writer, my friend.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate it. The book is In Defense of the Second Amendment by Larry Correia. Thank you so much for being here. You're welcome here anytime, okay?
Great. Much appreciated.
All right. You take care. Very cool. It's a good book. It's not often I just say unequivocally, without reservation, I think you should get this book. For one thing, I think you would enjoy reading it. I guess maybe that may be as important as anything, because if you don't enjoy reading it, you're not going to finish it, and you won't get the information out of it. This has lots of techniques, lots of information, little tricks, little things you can use just to make you better at what you do. It also just kind of helps you think through. The reality is, some of the folks on our side are as loony as some of the folks on their side, and they say stupid stuff. And sometimes it sounds really good. It's fun to repeat those stupid things that people say. And it kind of makes you feel good amongst your friends. But a lot of the things that some of the gun folks say don't play well with others. With somebody who's on the fence or trying to decide, no. You got to lose the bravado, lose the bluster, find some things that make sense that are non-confrontational, if you will. And I think this book does that. I just really appreciate Larry doing that. I guess it's one of those times when you think, okay, what can I do? Sign me up. I want to be in this fight. I want to be better at this. Well, spend a little money, spend a little time, right? How many times have I said it? Always comes down to that, doesn't it? It's money and time. What are you going to spend your money on? What are you going to spend your time on? Those are the things that are important to you. Doesn't matter what you say is important to you. If you're not putting time and money into it, it's not important to you. Something else is. Simple as that.